Hi, so I'm assuming you've clicked on this video because either you want to start learning a new language or you are currently in the process of learning a new language. However, you just don't feel like you're making much progress and you're looking for some tips and advice and things that you can do to, well, learn a language. And that's basically what this video is going to be, me giving you tips and advice and things that you can do, 8 things that you should do to help you learn a language. And if you're wondering who the hell I am and why you should take advice from me, hi, my name's Sophie. I'm a language student from the UK. I'm studying German, Spanish and French all at the same time. I'm trying to get a degree in all 3 of those languages. So yeah, I spend quite a lot of time focusing on learning languages, even outside of classes, because, well, to make progress in a language, you need to put in a lot of work and you need to put in work outside of classes. That is, if you are planning on learning a language through classes. You don't actually need to do that. There are tons of people out there who have learned a language from scratch, starting off just by using resources that they found either online or books and stuff. That is possible, and there's so many resources out there these days that you can use and take advantage of and should be taken advantage of if you want to learn a language. I personally have not learned a language from scratch outside of classes so far. However, I am hoping to start learning a new language in about 2 days' time from now, and I'm going to document that on my YouTube channel. So, you know, if you want to stick around for that, hit that big red subscribe button down below to see more videos from me, and I will be using all of these tips when I'm trying to learn that new language. And yeah, I use all of these tips and do all of these things pretty much every day, well, almost every day, in order to work on my German, Spanish and my French. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, my first tip for you all is to read in your target language. Now, you don't just need to read books which have been designed for native speakers. Whilst these are great, these can be very daunting at first, and they may have some grammatical structures in them that you just haven't necessarily learnt yet, and you wouldn't be able to understand necessarily everything if you can't understand the grammatical structures. Of course, you could maybe read children's books that have been designed for native speakers, but if you don't want to read children's books and you don't feel at a level to read books designed for native speakers yet, there are these other books that are called easy readers. I've got an example of one here that I bought whilst I was working as an au pair in Germany, and you can actually see it's got the German level on it. I was taking B1 German level classes at the time, so of course I got a B1 book to go alongside that. They have them in all sorts of different levels, and these are literally written for people trying to learn a language. And literally in here they have certain words that have like a little number next to them, and then you can find them. They've got this little number that goes alongside them in like the footnotes, and then they give you a definition of that word. So they're literally designed for people trying to learn a language. Other than that, there's also loads of articles that you can find online, newspaper articles, maybe magazine articles as well, if you're not one for reading big things. Yeah, this book that I've got here is actually loads of different short stories, so you know, that's great. But yeah, reading in your target language is great because it introduces you to loads of new vocabulary, and also you get to see like grammatical structures that you've been learning. You get to see them in a written context, and yeah, you just get to see how the language is written and how people use it, and it's just great. And it's something you can do for fun because you can read anything you want to read. If you're interested in non-fiction, you can read non-fiction. If you're interested in, I don't know, fantasies, you can read fantasies. It's great. Tip number 2 is to listen to as much content as you can in your target language. You really get used to how the language is spoken by native speakers. You can pick up new words, and there's so much resources to listen in for stuff online these days. You know, you can find songs in other languages on YouTube. Netflix now has so much content in other languages. When I first started learning German and Spanish back at college, don't get confused with university, college in the UK is different to the US. I basically mean like this weird thing in between school and university. Yeah, it's weird. Anyway, when I first started learning Spanish back at college, and I was also learning German, there was no German content on Netflix. I don't think there was as much Spanish stuff as there is now. There was probably some stuff on there, but like La Casa del Papel and all of those big Spanish shows, yeah, they weren't out then. So yeah, it was kind of hard to find stuff to watch in the languages that I was trying to learn. These days, you're spoiled for stuff to watch, and I really think that if there were German shows on Netflix back then and loads more Spanish shows, and I knew about all these shows, I probably would have got better grades in my listening exams, as listening was something that I really struggled with when I first started learning languages. And yeah, now listening in German and Spanish is like particularly easy for me, and I owe it all to Netflix. And yeah, and French, it's getting easier as well because of Netflix. Listen to stuff in your target language. It really helps. And it's fun. You can find some really good shows on Netflix. You know, you can find songs that you can have a little boogie to. And you can find YouTubers whose videos you enjoy watching. And yeah, you can learn a language whilst you're like sitting in bed with a cup of hot chocolate or a cup of tea. It's great. Tip number 3 is to not forget about learning grammar. Do grammar exercises, watch tutorials on YouTube explaining certain elements of grammar that you just don't understand in your target language and you need to work on. I've seen so much stuff on the internet about how you don't need to learn grammar to speak another language. You need to learn grammar to speak another language. I haven't met one person who speaks another language who hasn't learned the grammar, other than people who literally like move to that country from a young age or have like bilingual parents, you know, grew up bilingual and stuff. Otherwise, you kind of do need to learn the grammar, especially if you want to be able to write it. And yeah, you need to learn it, especially if the grammar is so different to the grammar in your native language, because then you can't even just guess. Like, for example, with German, they have these things like certain subordinate clauses send the verb to the end of the sentence, which they don't do in English. Like, the word order in German is completely different, and if I didn't learn German grammar, I wouldn't be able to speak German. And if I didn't learn Spanish grammar and French grammar, I wouldn't be able to speak French and Spanish, because I wouldn't understand what the subjunctive is, because we don't have that in English. Don't forget about grammar. There's tons of resources online for learning grammar. Like I said, YouTube videos. There are websites with explanations and then like free exercises that you can fill out. You can get books online if you're willing to pay for books. If you, I would say look into any book before you buy it. Get some recommendations. Don't just buy any random book, because you know some of them aren't the best, but some of them can be really useful. Learn grammar. It's important. Now, my 4th tip is to keep a diary. Now, you may be thinking, 1, that's boring. I don't want to just write about everything that I do every day in another language. Or you may be thinking, how is writing about everything that I do every day in another language going to help me learn that language? And technically, you don't even have to write about everything that you do every day. In my diary, I don't write about everything that I do every day, just because I've only recently started this diary and I'm already at like an advanced level or upper intermediate level in each of my languages. So I don't feel like that necessarily writing what I do every day is going to help. I just write about my feelings, or I try and get creative in that language. But if I was learning a new language from scratch, then I would write about everything that I do every day, because although it is boring, it's good and helpful. It gets you thinking about all of those grammar structures that you've been trying to learn. It gets you thinking about the vocab, and you have more time to think about everything whilst you're writing than when you're speaking. You have more time to think about the grammar that you're using. And then when you're thinking about it when you're writing and getting used to using it, then when you're speaking, you'll be able to use it, hopefully not having to think so much about it if you're just so used to writing down in all of these different grammatical structures. And also, writing is important, especially if you want to do any test or anything, because you need to be able to write for every language test I've pretty much ever heard of. There's some sort of writing section in it. So yeah, keeping a diary will help. Get used to writing, get used to spellings in that language. And it can just be a bit of fun, it could be peaceful, especially if you like writing anyway, if you are a creative person. Like I said, you don't just have to write about everything that you do every day. You could write little short stories in the language that you're trying to learn. Get creative with it. My fifth tip for you all is to take advantage of language learning apps. There are many good apps out there for learning languages, many of which are free or they have free versions of the app. However, do not solely rely on whatever apps you are using or apps that you are using to learn a language. Apps are there to enhance, should be there to enhance the language that you are trying to learn, or to make up for something that you are missing in your language learning routine. However, you cannot learn a language purely through using apps, at least as far as I'm aware, and what I've heard from other people and from who speak more than one language, and from my experience learning languages. Apps just aren't enough on their own. I see so many people and hear stories from so many people say, oh, I wish I could speak another language. I use a bit of Duolingo for Spanish, but I haven't really made much progress, or I don't really learn anything. I can't really speak it. Now, I don't want to say that I hate Duolingo, although I hate Duolingo because I know some people do like Duolingo and I don't want to diss it. If it works for you, it works for you. Maybe it's better for certain languages than others. I don't know. Maybe the paid for version is better than the free version. I don't know. However, if you're going to use any app, and just any app, then you're not going to really learn a language. At least out of all the language learning apps that I have tried, I haven't found one that was like, yes, if I used that and did nothing else, I'd be able to speak the language. But I'm not saying apps are bad. I think you should use apps. There are plenty of good apps out there, but think about what you're using each app for. Are you using an app because you want to learn vocabulary? Then maybe Drops is good. Are you using an app because you have nobody to speak to in that language and you just need to find a Tandem partner? Then maybe Tandem or HelloTalk would be a great app for you and something that you can use, and there's many other apps as well. These are just examples. Tip number 6 is to find a tandem partner or a language buddy, whatever you want to call it, but find somebody who speaks the language that you are trying to learn, either as their native language or as the same level as a native speaker, and who is trying to learn your language, and help each other out. You know, have a video call with them and spend, I don't know, half the video call practicing your target language and then speaking in your native language, which they're trying to learn, for example. You know, if you want to learn a language, you kind of need to speak it, so having somebody that you can speak with is great, and they can help you with certain things. You can ask them certain questions, you know, you can make a friend out of it as well. I actually have a tandem partner who I speak to pretty much once per week on video call, who I actually found through YouTube, and we have chats, and they're actually really fun. It's not boring because she's a friend now in a way, and well, in a way I guess yeah, she's a friend. I hope she sees me as a friend. It would be really awkward if she's watching this video and she doesn't see me as a friend, but yeah, she's a friend now. And you know, if she ever comes to the UK, if she's ever near London or whatever and she wants to meet up, I'm gonna meet up with her. I'll be her tour guide, whatever, and I hope she would do the same for me if I went to Chile. So yeah, find a tandem partner. They're great. Tip number 7 is to keep a vocab book and literally write down any new word that you come across in this book, and then try and learn a certain amount of words per day and actually get into the habit of doing that. Because when I first got my vocab book, I didn't get into the habit of learning new words, and now that I am getting into the routine of learning new words, I'm finding myself learning words that I wrote in this book a year ago and have completely forgot about, and all of the new words that I'm writing down I'm not learning currently because I'm learning ones that I should have learned already. Also, do not misplace this book, your vocab book. Put it somewhere where you will not lose it. Don't do what I did with my Spanish book and just lost it for a month, where actually it was somewhere like that should have been really obvious because I'd put it in a really organised place, yet I expected it to be in a pile of mess and chaos, and it was actually in like a folder for vocab that I forgot I'd even organised in the first place. Don't do that. But do keep a vocab book and do write down any new vocab that you come across in here. And I really need to stop looking at myself in the viewfinder and actually look at the camera, but I'm really scared it's going to go out of focus because I feel like my camera always goes out of focus. Tip number 8 is to work on your target language little but often. Now, learning a language is a long process, and you do need to work on your target language pretty much every day if you want to see progress. You can't, for example, learn the subjunctive in French for an hour on one specific day and then not touch upon it again for another like 2 months, because in those 2 months you will just forget all of the subjunctive in French and you will not use it in conversations, and you probably won't pick up on when it needs to be used or when other people are using it, for example. So yeah, learn stuff, come back to stuff, go back over stuff, learn new words every day, for example, but don't just sit there for like 6 hours straight trying to learn the language, because it will become boring and your brain can only take so much in. You know, we need breaks, we need to do other things, and you know, you could, you know, in one of your breaks from learning a language, maybe just watch something in that language because it's a bit more relaxed. You know, passively, I'm saying passively watch something in that language, not actively. You do learn more from active listening than passive listening, but you still learn a bit, I feel like. I don't know, but that's not a topic for this video anyway. And yeah, that was my last tip. Let me know if you think that I've missed anything out, or if you don't agree with my tip, and let me know what language you are trying to learn or hoping to learn and why you're so passionate about learning this language. I would love to hear that, as I don't know, I feel like there's so many different languages out there and people have all sorts of different languages, all sorts of different reasons for wanting to learn one. And yeah, I feel like it'd be really interesting to read those comments, and give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to see more videos from me, follow me on Instagram and all of that lovely stuff, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!